Hey, everybody. Appreciate people swinging by. I'm plenty frustrated and pissed off tonight. Um, the best possible thing would be to grab a beer and get on here, impromptu style, and talk about just the absolute state of everything. It is a special type of frustrating moment right now. Um, it is this absolutely absurd legislative mess, which is a different type of mess. Most of the time, as we talk about this and we hang out, we're talking about, whether or not the far right is gaining too much power and too many converts and is going to overthrow democracy itself. And now we're talking about the natural system of our government that allows it to not work and to be gummed up and to put my fate and your fate subservient to the fate of incredibly wealthy and powerful people. And it's just an incredible combination of things. I mean, it's just everything coming together at once. Obviously, the debt ceiling thing is just to even think about what a mess that is so infuriating. And then, of course, we got to talk about Manchin and cinema. And I needed to be around some people. I needed to talk to some people about how frustrating this whole thing is on just like a pretty incredible level. The debt ceiling thing, I was tweeting about this earlier. Just the fact that we have like this completely made up thing. The debt ceiling is like this completely fabricated, constant crisis, a sort of Damocles that hangs over our head. And there's just no reason for any of it. And then on top of it, to watch Mitch McConnell and the Republicans basically say, hey, you need to take care of this, but we're not going to vote for it because it's a politically toxic thing to do. So we're obviously not going to vote for it. But good luck with that, Democrats. I enjoy choking on that thing. Like, that's so fun. It's so fun to have to go into work and in between classes and in between lectures be like, oh, okay, so they took care of it. Okay, fine. So the government is not going to run out on Thursday. We're not going to default on everything, and trillions of dollars worth of wealth and all of our institutions are going to melt down. Wonderful. Great. And it just reminded me, and I don't remember how long ago this was, but it was the first time that I remember the debt ceiling being a like this contested thing. And immediately I heard about it. I was just like, man, that sounds terrible. Why do we have that? And then it was looking at it and realizing like we didn't need it, actually. It's a completely fabricated thing that in these weird polarized times is now an invitation for the entire system to melt down and for my life and your life to be destroyed. But I'll never forget that first time I heard about it. I was just absolutely beside myself. Like, why does Congress have to do this? Like, debt is just a matter of course, or how this stuff works. Like, why do they have to get in and approve this thing and approve to pay the debt that they've already accrued? It's insane. And then I just remember it like interfering in my family's holiday. The first time that this thing ever happened, I just remember the people in my family were like, oh my God, is the economy going to melt down? Like, are we going to be safe? Like, is something going to happen? And it's just this game. It's this game. And not only do the Republicans play the game, we have the media that's just like, this is a shrewd move by the Republicans. It's pretty smart. See what they're doing. They're putting pressure on the Democrats here. Wonderful. What a great system that we've got. And I want to get to it. I want to talk a little bit about how I've been feeling watching Manchin and Cinema over the past few days. Okay, can we talk about the fact that they love this attention? Like, it is obvious that they adore this white hot spotlight that is basically an entire nation that is like, hey, can you please do something to help people? Please, can you do it? Because my life is suffering. The people I love are suffering. Like our infrastructure is absolutely crumbling, and it's actually affecting human lives. And meanwhile, Manchin and Sinema love this shit in a way that is disturbing. They've just become like the protagonist of like this grand opera. And you have, of course, Manchin, who has built his entire modern career on this, on standing up Congress and standing up any sort of agenda. And then, of course, Sinema has now built her entire career around this. She has defined herself as a character in a larger narrative. That's what Kyrsten Sinema has done in this situation. Has just absolutely centered her political identity and her political future and fates based on being a major actor in this role, and having everybody chase after her and ask what she thinks, what her concerns are, what she could possibly come out and support. And she doesn't have anything. She doesn't have anything. Anytime that anybody talks to fucking Kyrsten Sinema about any of this stuff, she has nothing to say. She's not engaged with the policy. There's nothing specific that she's asking for. At least Joe Manchin, at least that sack of shit, can come out and say, well, I think we've discovered 1.5 trillion or whatever in the hell it is that he says. Kyrsten Sinema doesn't even have that. She has no clue what is happening in this entire situation. And she's looking around. It's like Blagojevich back then saying, I've got this thing I'm not going to give away for free. So all of a sudden you have Kyrsten Sinema, who has the sign out on the door that says for sale, which is what I keep talking about, is that she, my God, is she for sale? It's incredible watching this thing play out, and repulsive. If they don't figure out a way to primary Kyrsten Sinema, the Arizona Democratic Party has completely failed. Because I don't care who it is, go out in the middle of the road and find somebody with halfway sensible or even articulatable positions, and even like a modicum of self-respect and or duty or compassion or empathy. Primary. You have to do it. This is so repulsive and so disgusting. And the fact that this has been treated, don't get me off on this. Like I'll talk about this all night, and I'll keep all of you way too long. The fact that this has been turned into this big, giant spectacle and soap opera, and the media is loving this shit. They absolutely love covering this, because all of a sudden you got all these political junkies and sickos who are just like, oh my God, can you believe how this is playing out? And it's no better than the congressional baseball game last night. That's all it is. It's an opportunity to bring in ratings. It's an opportunity for content. This is great content. Great content. And again, our political spectrum is so skewed in this damn country that this agenda, which isn't even really the beginnings of how to fix things in this country and reinvest in infrastructure, healthcare, different energies, like it's not even enough. It's not even close to enough. It's barely a fraction of enough. It's the beginning. It's a drop in the bucket. All of this stuff, infrastructure, the Build Better agenda, all of it is just a drop in the bucket. And it's the kind of thing that in a society that made sense, first of all, you wouldn't need it, because we would always be investing in these types of things. But in this society, this broken society, this absolutely fractured society where the wealthy and the powerful have made cruel austerity so that they can make money and gain profit and power, because that situation is in place, this Build Back Better agenda has to begin the process of making up for the last 40 years. We're 40 years, 4 decades behind. And they treat it like it's socialism and tyranny, and like it's something that's actually leftist, as opposed to something that should be passed every year. We're supposedly the richest nation in the history of the world. What a joke that is. We should be able to pass something like this every year to invest in infrastructure and healthcare and education and the social safety net. That's what we should be doing every year. And this is being treated like it's a once in a lifetime, once in a generation piece of legislation. Oh my God, it's massive. The only reason that it seems massive is because we haven't been investing in this country for decades. I taped a thing for those of you who listen. Tricky Nicky Hausman is out from the Weekender tomorrow. I had to run solo. I did a full rundown on the history of neoliberalism, and also like this sort of dehumanizing thing that neoliberalism and hypercapitalism has created. They think this is a total game. They think this is a total game. All of them, mansions, cinema, moderate Democrats, the Republican Party, the media, politicos, pundits, all of them. They think this is the most fun thing that has happened in forever. Oh my God, there's so much news. People are paying attention. Do you know why they're paying attention? Because their fucking schools are crumbling around their ears. That's why. Because people are dying of COVID left and right. Because there's so much income inequality in this country from people being exploited in neoliberalism and austerity, absolutely destroying lives. That's why people want to see something happen. That's why people are concerned. But to them, it's just content. It's just an entertaining story. You know, it'll work out or it won't. It'll be something to talk about on Sundays. Meanwhile, people suffer in real life. It is the most disgusting thing. And I remain optimistic in certain ways, but I still feel almost every single day like I hope that they'll do better. I hope that maybe they'll look at rising authoritarianism and radicalism. I keep hoping that they'll realize that the reason why this country is in the trouble that it is because of neoliberalism, austerity, hypercapitalism, and income inequality, and this cruelty and exploitation. Because it's not hard. Like, this isn't controversial. Like, even economists who pay attention, anybody who pays attention knows that this current moment is because of neoliberalism and austerity. Everybody knows that. And in order to even begin dealing with this problem, you have to start investing in things. Might help if you invested in bridges so they didn't fall into the water and kill dozens of people at a time. Might help if after a pandemic you started investing in healthcare. And look what happened in this country. And these people, these vultures, they look at it and they're like, yeah, hundreds of thousands, probably 1 million people already have died of this thing. Well, moving on. Hopefully you can reopen your businesses and it'll be totally fine. How have we not come to the point where we look at what has happened, when we look at evidence, when we look at what is so obvious, and we can't even begin to invest? We can't even begin to throw out a crumb. Instead, you got Manchin and Sinema and everybody around them who's just playing politics with this and treating it like it's a sport. They think this is the most fun thing imaginable. Those political junkies and sickos, they are having the best time of their lives. Ratings, clicks, conversation, a nation held hostage. What a story. What a narrative. And meanwhile, it's not a narrative. It's people's lives. It's my family. It's your family. And we don't think about it enough in those terms. That these people, these selfish, self-centered, unempathic people are making sure that the people that I care about and the people that you care about, they live shorter, more miserable lives while they play their games. And meanwhile, what do? We have to watch after it like it's some piece of soap opera or it's some kind of spectacle that we're supposed to keep track of. That's what we can do. We gotta find better people. That's the only thing we can do. We have to find better people. We have to find people who are going to represent us and not special interest. We have to figure out some way that we can start getting some regular, normal people with consciences to run for government. We got to do that. And you have to go into the Democratic Party if that's your chosen route. If you listen, we can have arguments about whether or not you need to start a third party or whether or not it needs to be some sort of a grassroots pressure movement or whether or not the Democratic Party needs to be taken over. But I have to tell you, you got to do something. If you want to go through the Democratic Party, it has to be a wholesale change. It has to be a new generation of candidates. which is something, by the way, that the Republican Party showed us was possible. The Tea Party showed us that you can suddenly have some sort of a movement, and a reminder, of course, that the Tea Party movement was a completely artificial, like, astroturf movement by the wealthy. But they took over the party. Wholesale. Took over the party. The Democratic Party, if this is what we're going to get with it, these people have to be kicked out, and there have to be other people. There have to be other people, and they cannot be wealthy. They cannot be connected to these political machines. There has to be some sort of a grassroots movement to replace them with people who actually give a damn. If you want to go through the Democratic Party, if you want to start a new party, that's a different conversation. But my God, the Democrats and the Republicans have a stranglehold over politics in this country. I don't know. I really don't know. I think, I'll tell you the truth. I think that this plan is going to go through. I think when push comes to shove, Manchin is going to say yes to something, and Sinema is going to come along with them. I think that's what's going to occur, and what's going to happen is that the plans are going to get absolutely stripped down. I don't know if the social safety net plan is going to get passed. I don't know if it will. I think the infrastructure bill will. And I think it'll be stripped down, which is really unfortunate. And by the way, for anybody who wants to talk about this and they want to talk about strategy, they want to talk about how these things get put together, the Democrats should have gone higher than $3 trillion. Should have put it out there at like $10 trillion. Because at least then they'd bring it down. Because all of these, they're just making up numbers. It was like 3.5, and Manchin's like, 1.5 sounds better. He doesn't know anything about numbers, and there's no difference between 3.5 and 1.5 trillion. It's all made up shit. Money's made up. It's all a social construct. Debt isn't real. If there's one thing the United States of America over the course of the past few decades should have come to the point of realizing, none of this is real. Make it 1,000 trillion, make it 1,000,000 trillion, make it 1,000,000,000 trillion. It's not real. All of this is make believe and pretend. Oh, it's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. Again, I think if I had to guess at this point, I would say that the infrastructure bill gets passed, but it gets just absolutely knocked down to its core essentials. I think the Build Back Better agenda probably falls to the side. And again, I talked about this, I posted about this last night. Like, if you're Joe Biden at this point, you just have to say, listen, I've got a couple of people who aren't going to play ball. If you want me to pass anything in the midterms, you got to give me reinforcements. You got to send out the cavalry. But the Democratic Party doesn't do that. The Democratic Party, whenever they have power, whenever it comes time to the midterms, they're like, oh, we're so sorry that you considered us leftist and liberals. I promise you, we're centrist. We're maybe even more Republican than the Republicans. And meanwhile, the Republicans just go ahead and call them socialists and liberals and leftists, and then they beat them. Because at least the Republican Party in midterms has some sort of stated objective or philosophy. Meanwhile, the Democrats are apologizing for being Democrats. But if they want to make something of this, they have to say, this is a mess. And if you want things, if you want investments here, this, and this. These are the things that we are going to push if you give us some sort of overwhelming power that makes us move beyond the filibuster. Or just in general, more of a mandate. But Biden, if he wants to survive, if he wants any sort of an agenda, he has to use the bully pulpit. And I don't think he's comfortable with it. I think Biden is much more comfortable with Senate-style cajoling, talking, forming relationships, working across the aisle, bipartisanship. In this case, it's the bully pulpit or nothing. And, you know, when communications come out of the White House right now, and I was talking with a member of the Democratic Party the other day, and they agreed with this too. When I hear communications coming out of the White House, what I'm hearing the White House say is that, we'll get it there. We'll figure it out. Yeah, I think we're going to get there. It's a conversation with the press. It's a conversation about internal deliberations. It's not to the people. It's not to Americans saying, this is what I'm trying to do. It's not saying, hey, if we get this passed, this will happen. They're not putting any pressure on Manchin or Sinema. And the reason that they're not putting pressure on them is they're expecting them to come along and play ball. But there needs to be pressure, and they're shying away from it. And it's so damn frustrating. Man, I'm so damn tired of this. Oh, Ross. Ross has breakthrough COVID. Hope you feel better. Hope everybody's doing okay. Feel better. Get your strength back up. Let's get back to 100%. All right. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. I needed to rant and rave and commiserate for a second. I am so frustrated about this whole thing. They're playing games with people's lives. And it's the it's the people that I care about. It's the people that you care about. And they're being put on the line and they're being endangered. They're having worse, shorter lives because of this situation. And it's not a game, and it's not a story, and it's just it's horseshit. It's absolute horseshit that these people can be so craven and so selfish and think that this is a game. It's not a game. Man, it's frustrating. All right. So, got a Weekender episode coming out tomorrow. Go over to patreon.com/muckrake podcast. I talk about the history of neoliberalism, and I jump into the current economic system. I was pretty proud of this episode. I was pretty proud of this one. So if you haven't already, it's patreon.com/muckrake podcast. It talks about this stuff a little bit more. It talks about neoliberalism and the construction, which we need to understand what it is and how it happened. But cheers to everyone. Here's to at least getting a little bit of investment into the things that we need, into a better future. It needs to be better. It has to be better. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.